So in this session we'll be discussing on how to work with the list. We will see how we can use for loops with list. We will see in and not in operation, tuple unpacking, enumerate function, shuffle function and choice function. So let's see how we can work with the list. So let's take a simple example. Suppose I have a set of names which are all related. Suppose these are all the names of a cat. So they're all related. So values. So which is the best way to store these names of the cats? The first method or the second method? So obviously the first method, if you see here, we are using multiple variables, cat name 1, cat name 2, cat name 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. So we are having multiple repetitive variables. So instead of that, when we are having values which are related, it's better, the best way of programming is to use a single variable to store all these names in a particular place. So the second method is best suited, where we are assigning all these values within within a list and assigning that list to the variable called as cat name. So cat name is now going to contain all the names of these cats, which is actually stored in a list. How do you identify it as a list? Because it is enclosed between square brackets and the items are separated from each other by commas. Since these are names of the cat, they are strings, so that's why you're enclosing the names of the cats within single quotes. So let's see a simple example of how we can work with the list. So the previous example, now we are seeing how we can do it. So this is the first method where we are entering the name of the cat into different variables, cat name 1, cat name 2, cat name 3. So you can see that since we are having 6 cat names, we are having some 12 lines here which are repetitive. So this is a very wrong way of programming. And finally, when we are printing it, we are repeatedly giving cat name 1, and when we are concatenating with again cat name 2, again doing string concatenation with cat name 3. See, the output looks like this. So when I say A, then I say I give the second cat name as B, then let's say I give the second cat name as C, then D, then E and F. So what is happening here is this is a very hard coding way of doing the code, because here in this program I don't have any flexibility also on the number of cats. I am forced here to enter the value of the name of the cat 6 times. So I do not have any flexibility even upon the number of entries the user wants to do. So the best way to do is the second method, where we will be using list in order to store these names of the cat. Since they're all related to each other, let's first create a list. Okay, and this is a empty list. See, I have put here opening square brackets and this closing square bracket, which means that this is an empty square list which I am assigning it to a variable called as cat name. So cat names is going to contain a list, but in this case at this point of time it's a empty list. Now we are asking the user to enter the name of the cat. Now what is the difference that we are doing is we are not doing any hard coding. We are giving the option to the user how many entries he wants to make, or if he doesn't want to do any entry at all. So since we are giving the option to the user, we need to put it, and since we are going to enter multiple cat names, so we are going to use a loop, and in this case we are using while loop, and we are enclosing this loop within a while true. That means this loop will be executed forever. So we can come out of this loop only when you come across a break statement. We have gone through all these looping statements and break statements in one of the previous sessions. So when I say while true, that means all these statements within this while block will be executed continuously, because true condition is it's always true. So how do you come out of a true come out of the loop? Then you have to whenever break is executed, it comes out of this while loop. So now let's see what happens within this loop. So while true, it will first print on the screen, enter the name of the cat. Then you have a string concatenation operator here. Then I am seeing length of cat names. Initially length of cat names will be 0, because initially we do not have any entries. 0 plus 1, so that means 1. And since you have to concatenate a string, you cannot concatenate a string with an integer. We are doing typecasting it to str. So in the first when you are in the first time in the loop, enter the name of the cat, 1 will be printed. Again we are using string concatenation operation, and we are saying or enter nothing to stop. So if you want to stop from the loop, we are giving a print display to the user saying that enter nothing to stop. Next, you have to call the input function to take the input from the user. So whatever input is given from the user, that will be stored in the variable name. So now we are checking if name is equal to space. That means if nothing is entered by the user, then break. That means it comes out of this loop. If suppose the user types in some characters, then this statement would be executed. So what is happening here in this? Cat names is now initially containing space. There's nothing inside it. We are concatenating it with whatever value was entered in name. First time it was cat names list is empty. Now suppose the user has entered AA as a name, then you are concatenating, as we have seen before. This is nothing but an example of list concatenation, where we go on concatenating the cat names to this list. So second time again it goes to the loop. Suppose I enter some name BB, then AA is already there in the list, to that BB will be concatenated. Again you go back to the loop. Suppose the user gives CC, AA BB is already there in the list, now you concatenate CC. So if the user stops entering, then if we suppose it doesn't give any value, then it comes out of the loop. So after it comes out of the loop, we are printing the cat names are for name in cat names. So this is a for loop that you are using, because now you have to display what is there in the list. So for that, in order to display what is name in the list, you have to use a for loop, and cat names is going to contain the entire list which was created, and we are going to loop through one at a time. So for name in cat names, so that means the first name would be taken and that would be printed. Again the loop will repeat. So the loop will repeat as long as name will have some value. So let's execute this and see. See, initially cat names is empty. Now while true, so we are asking a display enter the name of the cat 1 or enter nothing. Suppose I give AA, user suppose he types AA, so that means this if condition is not true, so it comes to this, where to the empty list AA will be concatenated. So press enter. So again it goes back to the loop. Suppose I say BB. Now again string concatenation has been done. AA is concatenated now with BB. Now suppose I say CC. Now AA, BB, CC is concatenated. Let's say now I don't enter anything. Then I just press enter. So when enter is pressed, break condition will be executed and it comes out of the loop. And it prints the cat names are, and it will loop through all these items in the list using this for statement, and AA, next BB, next CC would be printed on the screen. So let's see another example. So basically what happens, what is the benefit of using a list is, as compared to the previous one, in this program you can see that this program doesn't have any, it's not very generic. And there is no option for the user that he has to compulsorily enter six entries or 6. But in the second example, we are giving more option to the user. The user can give as many entries as he wants, and therefore the benefit of going for list is the data is now more structured, and you have more flexibility in your program, and you are avoiding the several repetitive variables. Now let's see a next example of how you can use for loops with list. So let's see an example. So since in a list will have multiple data, usage of for loops is very common. So which are the different ways that I can use for loop for a list? So this one we have already studied in the previous session. So when I give something like this, what does it mean? For I in range 4, when I give range 4, it means that this is actually containing a list. Range 4, it means that range 4 is actually containing a list which is similar to 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so range 4 is actually a sequence value that Python considers similar to the list 0, 1, 2, 3, or this is equivalent to this second example. So this line is actually equivalent to this example. So range 4 is actually a sequential list from starting from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So in a loop, first time I value will be 0, 0 will be printed, next I value will be 1, 1 will printed, so 0, 1, 2, 3 will be printed in 4 lines. Let's see a next example. Suppose I have a list something like this which have some these values. Okay, so now what can I do is I can give this list over here. in range, but I cannot give directly the list, right? You would always have to give a number. So we give length of supplies. So what would be the length of supplies in this case? 4. So it means for I in range of 4. In turn it means for I in range of 4. And you go on giving print statement in a similar way, where I say, yeah, I'm going to display index plus string concatenation. In the first time it will be index 0 in supplies is, and what is the value at supplies of 0? At supplies of 0 you have pens. So what would be the output of this program? It would be like this. Index 0 in supplies is pens, index 1 in supplies is staplers, then index 2 in supplies is flamethrowers, index 3 in supplies is binders. So this is actually the index which is printed here. String of I is nothing but this, in supplies is this part, and supplies of I is nothing but this part. So let's see a next operation, which is a very commonly asked question. What is in and not in operators? So now the work of in and not in operation is to check or to determine whether a value is present or not present in a list. So if you want to see whether a value is present or not present, you can go for in. If I say in, so that means it's going to check whether the value is inside the list, and not in is just the reverse. Is it not in? If the value not present in the list. So let's see this example. Let's try this in the ideally screen. Suppose I have a list something like this, hello. Okay, so let's say I create a list which is having values, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to demonstrate in operation I will say 1 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what does it mean? I am checking whether value 1 is present in this list. If it is present, it should return a boolean value true. If it is not present, it should return a boolean value false. As you can see here, in is a keyword, and that is why the color is different. See, it's returning a true value because it's not present. Let's try not in. Suppose I say 7, not 7 in, again the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm checking, is 7 in 7 present inside this list? It should return a boolean value false. Let's demonstrate not in. So let's say it will just work in a reverse way. 1 not in, there's a space, remember that, 4, 5, 6. 1 not in this. That means is 1 not inside it? In this case it should work the reverse of in. So it should say since 1 is present, so it should return false. So similarly if I say something else, 1 not in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 not in, yes, 7 is not inside this list, so it should return a true. So it's a very simple concept. In and not in is basically checking whether a value is present or not inside a list, and in and not in will always return a boolean value, either a true or a false. So, so let's see a program to understand this concept. So in this program I have created a list called as my pets, with these are the names of the pets. Okay, so we are asking a user enter a pet name. Suppose a user enters Sophie, then we are checking if Sophie not in my pets, but it is actually present. So that means this was not, it doesn't get into this print statement because if condition is false, and therefore it comes to this and it says name Sophie is my pet. So let's execute this. So enter a print pet name. Let me give something which is there, Sophie. So now this value of Sophie will go into this variable name, and it will check if Sophie not in my pets. No, this condition is false, so it comes to the else and it should print Sophie is my pet. Okay, now let's try it again. Now let's give a pet name which is not existing within the list. So now in this case this condition becomes true. Yes, this is not in my pet, so it says I do not have a pet named this one. Okay, so this was a simple program to demonstrate not in. You can also just make it as in. Change the same thing. It will just work in a reverse way. That's it. So if I say Sophie Now it's going to say I do not have a pet named. Okay, this condition I will have to change then. To make it meaningful, I will have to bring this print here and bring this print statement here, just the reverse. So now it will be more meaningful. Enter a pet name. Let's see, Zophie. Yes, it is saying yes, Zophie is my pet. So let's say I give something which is not present, then it say I do not have a pet name like this. So in just works to the reverse of not in. So let's see another concept now called as multiple assignment trick, or it is also called as tuple unpacking. So suppose I have a condition where I want to assign multiple variables with values in a list in one line of code. So see this example. I have a list here called as cat, which is having fat, gray, loud. Now let's say I want to assign these items of the cat to a variable. So let's say I want to assign cat of 0. In this case it's denoting the size. I want to give it to a variable called as size. Gray, let's say I want to give this to a variable called as color. Loud, let's say I want to give this value to a variable called as disposition. So instead of going on doing multiple statements like this, you can just type it in one line of code like this. So just equate cat to all these three different variables. So let's try this on the screen. Okay, so let's say I have like this. Let's say the color, let's say this is the color of the cat. Let's say the size, it is fat, and let's say it is loud. So what we were doing in the earlier case, let's say color is assigned cat 0. Let's say size is assigned cat of 1. Let's say disposition is assigned cat of 2. So instead of doing like this, what we can do is we can put all of this in one single line like this. Cat, size, disposition is equal to cat, and save it. Okay, so now what you can do is just give a print so that you can see this print. See, it works. So basically what we are trying to say is, this concept is called as tuple unpacking, or it is called as multiple assignment trick, where I can assign the list two different variables in just one single line like this. But suppose I try to see cat is a list which is having 3 values. Suppose I give a third value something like this. Will it work? This statement should give us an error because cat is a list which is having just 3 values, but I'm assigning a list which is having 3 values to variables to 4 variables. So it should give us an error saying that not enough values to unpack, expected 4 but got 3, because it is expecting 4 values here but it got only 3 because cat is just having 3 values here. So you should take care of that. Okay, so now let's see the next function called as enumerate function. See, we have enumerate is a concept where you can use this concept when you're using for loop. In the previous case we used range, so instead of that, in that place we can also use enumerate. Okay, an enumerate function, remember, will return 2 values. It will return the index of the item and it will return the item in also. So let's see an example to understand this. See, in the previous case what we were doing when we were using for loop, we were using range function like we did here. Right, we used range function. Now instead of this range function, what we can do is we can use a enumerate as well. But remember, enumerate will return 2 values. One is the index and the second one is the item. So what we have to do here is we have to write for index comma item. The first value which will be returned by the enumerate will be index. The second value which will be returned will be item. So suppose I have created a list here called supplies with these values. So when I am looping it, you have to loop it with two values. Okay, for index comma item in enumerate of supplies colon index. I gave print index for the first time, 0 will be printed, and what would be the item name? Pens will be printed. So when I loop for the second time, index number 1 would be printed, then staplers will be printed. Third time 2 will be printed as index and flamethrowers will be printed. So instead of writing print like this in two different lines, I can also give a meaningful statement like this: print index. So in the first time 0, index 0 in supplies is pens. Next time it will give index 1 in supplies is staplers. So let's see this. See, this is what will be printed. Okay, so this is the index number from the first loop, and this is the item value, and that has been taken into one line like this. Okay, so just to revise, what does enumerate do? So instead of using range of length of sum list technique which we have used in for loop, we can replace it with enumerate function, and on each iteration enumerate will return two values. One is the index of the item and the second one is the item in the list, and demonstrate the same thing with this example. So now where is enumerate function useful? Enumerate is useful if you need both items. So we can use enumerate function when we need both. I want the index as well as the item in the loops block. So then you can go for enumerate function. Let's go for the next function called as a choice function. Now choice function and one more is shuffle function. These two functions are available in the module called as random. So random module has two choice function and shuffle function. So that's why when you are using these two functions, please import this module, give import random. Now suppose I have created a list called as pets, which is having three values: dog, cat and mouse. Now if when I say random.choice, choice function, it will return a randomly selected item from the list. So it will choose one item from this list, that is dog, cat, mouse, and it will just display that. Randomly it will take one item. Remember, randomly it will take items. So that's why for each execution you may see different values. First execution maybe I will get dog, next execution maybe I will get cat, again execution maybe I will get back the same thing. So it's a randomly generated value. So let's see this execution of this program. So the same program is here. Import the random module, create a list here, and then display the random.choice. So because choice is a function inside the module random, so give random.choice and then give bits. See, first time when I executed I am getting moose, second time I execute I am getting cat, third time I am getting dog. So maybe I can get dog again. So it's a randomly generated value. Now there is one more function called a shuffle function. So what does shuffle function do? This is also inside the random module. It will just shuffle the items in a list. It will just shuffle the item in the list, and remember, this will just modify the list in place and rather than returning a new list. So let's see with an example. So just like in previous case, import the random module, create a list. So when I'm saying random.shuffle of people, it will just randomly shuffle the values within this list and it will print. But very important you have to remember is it will not return any value. So if I give a print here, it actually just says none. So if you want to really print what has been shuffled, you have to give the name of the list, which is people. See, the first print statement is giving us a none because random.shuffle people, it doesn't return any value, it's actually none. So after shuffling, the value will be in the list people. So that's why it prints this randomly generated values from this line. So you can see the values have been shuffled. Again you execute, it will give an other way of shuffling. See, every time you execute, different ways of shuffling of the list is seen. So try out all these examples in your system and see how all these functions, enumerate function, choice function, shuffle function, and what is tuple unpacking or multiple assignment trick, and how can you use in and not in operators, how to use for loops with lists. Try and work on all these functions to get accustomed to all these functions. Thank you.